I did something I don't usually do, and that is leave the Northeast in June. I try to anchor myself somewhere between, let's say, New Hampshire and Connecticut, because June is the month for striper fishing. But I did get pulled away for a very good reason down to Florida. For Quantum was running a writers camp, which is kind of a media trip. They had some writers from magazines around around the U.S. I fished with Captain Cody Rubner, who is actually he's from New England originally, from Cape Cod originally, but he
Belchertown, I think, actually.
So I've never caught a big tarpon ahead of this. I didn't even think this was really on the list because it's not. I guess you don't think of that part of Florida. We're near Jupiter. I'm terrible at knowing where I was. we fished Palm River Cottages out of Jensen Beach, Florida. So not far from St. Lucie Inlet.
Wow.
Throughout none of these experiences up here, or any of the tarpon fishing I've really heard of, did anybody mention the fights being so hard and long and really pushing you to the edge of your physical limit? When Cody Rubner and I are out there, and we see a string of tarpon coming up the beach, we ran out the inlet. And there were 5 or 6 boats that went out with the different riders and the folks from Quantum. And every captain kind of had their own program. One guy went offshore for sailfish. Another guy stuck in the back to look for snook. Some other people went and fished some of the wrecks and did some bottom fishing. And what Cody likes to do is he likes to, and this is like a lot of the good captains I fish.
I love Cody for it.
They love to burn gas, and he loves to, maybe he doesn't love to burn gas. He doesn't mind burning gas. He loves to run, is what I should say. And he covers ground to look for schools of fish along the beach. And we see some nervous water, saw one school of jacks, not interested in eating, and they were heading south, those fish. And he goes, oh, they're southbounders. He goes, when they're swimming south, they're tougher to catch. I'm like, that can't possibly be a thing. He goes, no, it is. He goes, for whatever reason, the fish that are heading north are more likely to eat than fish heading south.
It's interesting.
Then we saw another patch of nervous water, and as it came closer, you start seeing fins through it. And he goes, oh, those are tarpon. I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah. We've seen tarpon with them before, a couple of rollers. This was not a couple.
Yeah.
This was 100 fish in a string, and they were steadily moving north, just a big patch of them. And I guess because of my previous experience, I didn't think one would eat a live bait. You're like, there's no way.
So we soaked plenty of live baits on resident tarpon down his way, and they've just not eaten.
Because these fish aren't really eating, they're moving. He said they kind of eat along the way. So flip a live pilchard out in front of them, and I cast too far ahead of the school. So I brought the bait fish at that point, had enough time to get away from the line of fire there. Next cast, I dropped a little closer to the fish, and one comes right up and eats it.
Did you see the eat? Or did you just feel it?
I just felt it. So I don't think I would lose track of the bait after it landed. So it swam. It had no good way to go, the second one. And the fish ate it. I felt it. And the circle hook locks up. And I'm like, oh, I couldn't believe it. I was attached to tarpon. I'm ready for the jump. Like, here we go. Here's what you sign up for. To get there, you get the big tarpon jump. And as long as I get to that point and I get eyes on this fish, then even if I lose it, I'm a happy camper. I don't need to put hands on it. I just want to see it jump once or twice. And it never jumped. And the fight goes on, and this fish kind of keeps digging out offshore. And the setup I'm using was lighter than what we'd use for tuna fishing. So it was a Strive 6000.
Quantum.
A Quantum Strive 6000, which is I think it's $130 reel. Yep. So the benchmark is currently the highest level of reel they offer. That's going to be changing in July. We can't talk about that just yet, but beginning in early July, Quantum's got some big new gear announcements coming out just ahead of ICAST. We'll definitely cover that. And we got to play with some of those reels, and they look great. But the Strive is currently their lower price point reel. Mm-hmm. And the 6,000 size is a size I would put on a surf rod. So it would be like the size of maybe a Van Staal 200, maybe a 250. And the rod was a Quantum Myth rod, rated, I think it was the 15 to 30. Maybe it would be a good stout striper rod for throwing the dock. Mm-hmm. Maybe a little heavy for that. Maybe a little bit heavier. But it was so that was the setup. It would what Cody warned me about, and then this started happening. He goes, it's going to come up, and even if it doesn't jump, it's going to try to gulp air because they're air breathers. Part of what makes them such fascinating fish is they're able to get oxygen from the air as well as the water. And that allows them, the juveniles, to go and grow in these really kind of anoxic waters, deep into the backwaters where there's no oxygen because they can breathe the air. They're eating the mosquitoes and mosquito larvae way back. So it's it's an adaptation that allows them to survive as juveniles that they still can use as adults. And he said, every time that thing gulps air, count on adding more time to this fight. Okay. He said, you're wearing it down when it's underwater, but when it gulps air, it's going to get another burst. He said, so when it does that, when you feel it coming up, you need to change the position and try to pull the line directly across its back and mess up its attempt to gulp air. What a foreign concept for fighting a fish for me. Like I've never had to do anything like that. So first time it comes up, it gulps air. I don't successfully do anything to hinder it. It gets a nice deep breath and then again
proceeds to kick your ass some more.
Kicks my ass some more. Then the next time I kind of had it, and it was really interesting. I could tell he came up. I pulled as hard as I could straight down his back, and like his head knocked at the wrong point, and it seemed pissed off. Like it freaked out, took a little run, and at this point we'd moved out from say 15 feet of water where we hooked it, and we're now on 25, 30 feet of water. And that's another problem, Cody said. It seemed like everything that could have gone wrong for this fight was going wrong. Like he said, they get to deep water and they will just sulk down there and they're very tough to lift. And man, by the time it just would linger like 50 feet away from the boat. You know how tuna kind of have that safe distance too, where they're like, the giants at least, they're going to sit here and you're not going to be able to move them from there until they are totally gassed. And this fish had its comfort zone and it kept 50 feet between it and the boat. And I would get a couple feet, he would bleed a couple feet back out, and then finally he came into view. And once he got into view, you get the color, and you're like, okay, the end's in sight.
Yeah.
But when the end doesn't come quickly after you see it, like you've put everything into that, and things were shutting down for me. For old Jim.
We did get a full play-by-play from Cody, from Captain Cody, Cody himself.
He was very encouraging and I'm sure very diplomatic during the fight. Like other captains in the Northeast, I think, would have been yelling a little bit at some of the stuff I was doing. I did some unconventional.
You doing the broomstick ride, Jim?
No, I did not do the broomstick.
Pull that one out?
I didn't. Where I put the rod between my legs like a surf. That's a surf fishing.
I know.
It's a surf fisherman in me coming out.
It looks so out of place on the tuna ground. So I always give you shit for it.
So no, I did at one point I was leaning with my left hand on my knee and just holding the rod and like catching like taking a breather after I ran a sprint. It was it hurt. Everything hurt. But I'd never heard of anybody passing off a rod on a tarpon. I wanted to do it myself. And to make matters worse, too, not worse, but part of this media event is Quantum had a camera boat that was following around taking really beautiful pictures. And
the call came in pretty early.
When we hooked the tarpon, Cody called them. Marcos was the photographer. He works for Rather Outdoors, which is the parent company of Quantum. And they came over and were documenting the fight. And so I also, knowing that there was some film and some photography happening, I did not want to pass the rod then either.
Of course not. But
the downside of that is we got a lot of pictures of what was a quickly deteriorating Jim fighting this tarpon. And, long story short, the toughest part was that it got to the boat. Instead of doing a nice clean tuna circle, it's doing these figure eights. And where Cody would be trying to grab the lower lip to secure it, its head would go under the boat and its tail would come up and there would be nothing to grab on this fish. And you're not going to net it. You can't harpoon it or gaff it. So you got to get a lip grab on this thing. And it did 5 or 6 of those. And at one point, I've got 1.5 foot of line out and just it feels like my muscles are getting torn apart on my back. I am completely out of breath. My vision is constricting from the sides. You ever have that in football practice where
when you're just everything's, you don't know how it's going to end up.
So eventually Cody gets a grip on the fish, and with that letdown, there was relief, and then there was some comeuppance of.
You blew lunch, Jim.
It was breakfast, all over. So I'm holding it should be just kind of a bucket list experience. Here's a big tarpon, my first ever big tarpon I've ever caught, maybe the only one I'll ever catch. And I'm trying to admire it and look at it and really take in the moment. And I threw up right onto the thing's face.
To do it on a media trip with all the cameras rolling and the glory moment is spoiled by
I wasn't spoiled. A lot of people have landed them perfectly. I feel bad that I blew chunks into this thing's giant ancient eye, but
it was dubbed the Poon Bootin' Rally, and it won catch of the media trip. I'm bummed I missed it, Jim.
Well, maybe
if it wasn't for
time.
that damn hurricane, we would have went. I probably would have screwed up your cast at that fish.
Yeah, you probably would have thrown right over me.
Where I might have made the right cast the first time, and you would have been left out in left field.
Well, we'll have to see. We can plan a tarpon from Shore Adventure. Gabon is supposed to be the...
I'm not going to Gabon, bro.
Let's go to Gabon.
I'm not. I'm scared of monkeys, bro.
If I have to leave Northeast in June, what a better place to do it than to catch another migration, the tarpon migration north. Big thanks to Quantum for having me down there. Big thanks to Cody Rubner for that. I know you got a little testimonial from him on how his angle of the fight.
I got his perspective.
I'm sure...
It was a lot more complimentary than I thought it was going to be, Jim. You did good, Jim.
Back when I spent my summers scooping minnows and selling crab traps from behind a tackle shop counter, Quantum was our best-selling saltwater reels. Since breaking back onto the saltwater scene in 2024, Quantum has been reclaiming that spot with the new Benchmark and Strive spinning reels. So far this year, I've been kicking around the backwaters, casting jigs to weakfish, fluke, and schoolies with my Benchmark 2500. In just a couple months, I can't wait to pit its CFX 200 carbon fiber extreme drag system against Albies and Bonito. My kids, and let's face it, me too, have been loving fishing the Strive 3000 combos around the docks for scup, sea bass, and anything else that's going to eat a piece of freezer-burnt squid. For $150, these are reliable setups we'll have season after season for when they're ready to graduate from the scup and sea bass to the stripers and blues. The Benchmark 6000 that I've been using in the surf since last summer is still performing like new thanks to the Seal Lock 6 protection that prevents water, sand, and salt from getting into the body and spool of the reel. And Quantum's not just coming back with reels. They also have the Myth lineup of saltwater rods. I recently had a chance to fish these in Florida, pitching live baits to tarpon and snook and throwing poppers at jacks. These rods blend strength and sensitivity and have all the makings of a great rod for big striped bass. To learn more about Quantum saltwater reels and rods, visit quantumfishing.com. Quantum, tested beyond limits.